Eleanor sat quietly in her favorite armchair, the one tucked near the window that caught the morning sun just right. It had seen decades of love, rocking her babies to sleep, reading aloud fairy tales with animated voices, and comforting her teenage children through heartbreaks and disappointments. Now, it bore only the soft weight of time and loneliness. The walls were lined with framed photographs, birthdays, graduations, family trips, but even those seemed to be fading, just like her place in her children's lives. They were grown now. Busy. Important. And slowly, they had drifted from her, not in distance, but in connection. They came home on holidays, texted once in a while, and called only when necessary. Conversations were rushed, filled with updates rather than curiosity, obligations instead of love. Earlier that day, her son Jake had stopped by. He stayed for just 20 minutes. He'd forgotten it was her birthday. No cake. No card. Just a distracted, "Oh, I've got a meeting soon, Mom," before rushing out the door. She had smiled anyway, nodded understandingly, and waved him off with trembling fingers. When the door shut behind him, the silence returned like an unwelcome visitor. But this time, Eleanor didn't cry. She sat motionless, staring out the window as the afternoon light spilled over her lap like warm memory. Her heart ached, not from anger, but from a deep, aching invisibility. "They love me," she whispered to herself. "But they don't see me anymore." She thought of all the sacrifices she had made, the dreams she had set aside, the hours spent making their lives beautiful. Somewhere along the way, her own reflection had disappeared in the mirror, replaced by, just Mom. But something shifted inside her that day. A quiet resolve. Not bitterness, not resentment, just a decision. "If they won't remember who I am, I will," she said aloud, her voice steady and clear. And with that, Eleanor stood up from the chair. Not just to move, but to rise. The very next morning, Eleanor did something she hadn't done in years. She stepped outside her comfort zone. Wrapped in her burgundy shawl and courage, she walked to the local community center just 2 blocks away. The place buzzed with life, children laughing, volunteers setting up tables, elderly neighbors chatting over cups of lukewarm tea. She felt nervous but curious, like a student on the first day of school. A volunteer named Grace greeted her warmly. "We could use someone just like you," she said after hearing Eleanor mention her love for cooking. "You'd be perfect for our Thursday kitchen program. We teach simple, healthy meals to young moms. Some of them barely know how to boil water." Eleanor smiled for the first time in days. "I'd love to help." That Thursday, she tied on an apron and guided a small group of nervous young women through the steps of making her famous vegetable stew. But she didn't just teach recipes, she shared stories. About being a young mother with little money and big dreams. About stretching meals and stretching patience. The girls listened, not out of politeness, but with real interest. One of them, a shy girl named Tara, hugged Eleanor after class. "You make me feel like I can do this. Like I'm not alone." That hug stayed with Eleanor the entire week. It lit something inside her, a flame she thought had burned out. Encouraged, Eleanor began journaling again in the evenings. Thoughts poured onto the page, raw, honest reflections on motherhood, aging, loneliness, and grace. On a whim, her granddaughter helped her post a snippet online with the hashtag letters from Eleanor. It went viral overnight. Comments flooded in, "This reminds me of my grandma. Please post more, you have so much wisdom. I needed this today." Eleanor's heart swelled. She wasn't just someone's forgotten mother anymore. She was a voice. A teacher. A guide. The dining table was set with care, just like old times, Eleanor's finest white linen, her vintage china, and a fresh bouquet of lilies placed gently in the center. The rich aroma of her signature lasagna filled the air. It had been years since she hosted a dinner like this. But tonight was different, not a holiday or celebration, just a quiet invitation. Jake, Emily, and Daniel arrived one by one, each carrying the same distracted energy. Phones in hand, small talk on their lips. But something about the room gave them pause. It was warm. Purposeful. Their mother looked radiant. Confident, even. Dinner began with polite conversation. Jake asked about the meal. Emily complimented the flowers. But it was Eleanor's calm, composed presence that stood out most. She wasn't trying too hard. She wasn't asking if they wanted more. She wasn't seeking their approval. She was simply being. Then, Emily broke the silence. "Mom. You're kind of famous now," she said with a laugh, scrolling through her phone. "Your posts are everywhere. People love you." Eleanor chuckled softly. "I'm just sharing what I've lived. I never imagined others would care." Months passed, and something beautiful began to blossom, not just in Eleanor's life, but in the hearts of her children. Jake started calling her once a week, not out of duty, but with curiosity. Emily began sending her pictures of her children's drawings, asking Eleanor for parenting advice. Even Daniel, the quiet one, started coming by on Sundays, just to sit on the porch and sip tea with her. But Eleanor had changed. She no longer waited by the phone, desperate for attention. She was busy living. Her letters from Eleanor posts had grown into a full online community. Strangers from around the world wrote to her seeking advice, sharing their own stories of aging, invisibility, and renewal. Eleanor answered every letter with compassion and grace, reminding each one that they mattered. Every Sunday, her porch transformed into a gathering place. Neighbors came, young mothers, college students, even local elders, drawn by her warmth and stories. She called it Tea with Eleanor, a ritual of reflection, laughter, and shared humanity. There were no lectures, just quiet wisdom offered like homemade cookies, simple, sweet, and nourishing. One afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through the trees, her 8-year-old granddaughter climbed into her lap. "Grandma," she asked innocently, "how did you make everyone start listening to you again?" Eleanor smiled, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's cheek. "I stopped trying to be what everyone expected. I started being true to myself. When I respected me, others followed." Her granddaughter nodded as if she understood, and maybe, just maybe, she did. Eleanor looked around at the small crowd gathered on her porch, at the family who now saw her with new eyes, and at the life she had rebuilt not from bitterness, but from quiet bravery. She hadn't demanded their respect. She earned it, by first remembering her own worth. And in doing so, she didn't just regain her place in their hearts, she rediscovered her place in the world.